These are our MyDo masterclasses that we host on a bi-monthly basis. Different to our workshops, these are exclusively, available and accessible only to our ESD, beneficiaries. So everyone on the call is in some sort of ESD program with us. So I think on behalf of my door, I would like to thank everyone for availing themselves and for attending one of these. So this is the second last one that we're having for the year. We have one more around October, November. So please look out for communications on that. But yeah, back to the masterclass at hand. So today we thought we would tackle quite an important topic for any business. So we do recognize that, when you're starting out as, the director, you're on your own, but your business gets to a point where it starts growing and you have to start hiring people to capacitate, your offering that you offer to your clients and your customers. Of course, Donald Trump's main preparation. Can I ask that we keep our mics muted? Thank you. Thank you so much. So we do understand that, HR plays a very important role when you have to start hiring, when your business starts growing. HR is quite critical because there's a lot, of layers. I think our guest speaker for today, Buhlale, will speak better to it. But there's a lot of things to consider. How do you acquire the right talent? How do you ensure that you maintain, that they're still happy, in your organization? So what sort of things do you need to have in place to ensure that you retain, your talent, as well, and that you grow and develop them as well? So joining us today as our guest speaker that will be running the session for us is Buhlali Baile, an HR professional and the founder of Get Corporate Ready, a dynamic platform dedicated to empowering corporate professionals with the insights they need to steer their careers towards success. Buhlali, she is an expert in the field. She's contributed her expertise to esteemed corporates and organizations such as Investec, Standard Bank, Bowman's, and most recently Transaction Capital and We Buy Cars. In her role there, she was deeply committed to uplifting professionals, where she currently shares invaluable knowledge through, her YouTube channel, social media platforms, all of that coupled with personalized mentorship as well. Recognized as one of the most influential recruiters by the South African Graduate Employment Association 5 times in her career, she exemplifies dedication to guiding individuals towards success. Buhlali, thank you so much for agreeing to run this session for us. If there's anything I missed, please, please, please forgive me. But on behalf of my door, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to come and speak to our entrepreneurs about this very, critical, business topic. I think just before you start, I'd like to just speak to the housekeeping rules for this session. I'd like to request that we all keep our mics off and our cameras off as well, just for bandwidth purposes. If you do have a question for Buhlali as she goes through the session, please raise your hand or type your question or comment in the chat. Myself and the rest of the team are on the call to help Buhlali facilitate that. Otherwise, Buhlali, the floor is yours. Thank you once again for agreeing to do this.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mtinku. Thank you, everyone, for availing to be here. As they've already said, my name is Buhlale Baile. Such an honor to be here today and such an honor to be able to present to you what it really takes to get the right talent and also in this. I'm excited to be speaking to entrepreneurs today. I'm newer in the field. I've had my corporate career for almost 14, 15 years across the various organizations that have been mentioned already. Quite new to being an entrepreneur myself and running my own thing. So I think so many insights I've learned from my corporate career that I'm excited to today, but also more recently insight around what it actually takes to start up something and start building it from scratch. So I'm so excited to be speaking today. I will be sharing a presentation along the way. But as they've said as well, guys, if there's any questions, please raise your hand. Please also pop it into the chat as well. Please, if you can, just help me If I'm during a presentation and someone wants to ask a question, please just guide me if I haven't seen a hand raised as yet. But guys, I want this to really be an engaging session where you're free to ask questions, where you feel to engage on some of the topics that I'll be speaking about today. Yeah, super excited. Going to get into the presentation now. But I think as part of the intro, I had prepared a slide on the introduction as well. Pairings.
Something is coming up. Okay, I
Okay,
can see your screen. Yes.
you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So guys, today we're really just going to be delving into mastering the art of effective recruitment and talent management. This is such a big topic for me and something that is very, very close to my heart. I've been in the HR space for a number of years, as I've said, over 14 years of experience. And a large part of my experience has been in the talent space, so talent management, talent recruitment, young talent management and recruitment. And thus, those are the areas that I am super, super passionate about. I absolutely love being someone who has the ability to identify the best talent for the organization, but also someone that takes a lot of care in terms of making sure people feel welcomed, people feel wanted, people feel seen, people feel like they belong. And there's so many different aspects that go into retaining the talent that you have, which we will delve into a bit today. So super excited to be speaking to you guys about that as well. I'm also someone that is super passionate about personal branding. And so personal branding is a big thing of mine because I definitely believe that, how you present yourself, how you position yourself, whether it be in recruiting, whether it be on social media, whether it be things about your business, how you present yourself matters, right? There's a long-term effect that goes with that, and how you carry yourself as you engage with people matters. So I'm someone that is not just going to teach about principles today, but I think I want to get to the heart of things. I want to get to the nuts and bolts of what really makes people tick. And so hoping that you are going to gain so much value from this session today. One of the quotes that I wanted to share as we're starting off is that great vision without great people is irrelevant. So whatever businesses you're in today, if you're in a particular business that's, got a massive vision for where it is you want to be, you know who the game players are within the other SMMEs, having a great vision without making sure you have the right people in the role that are going to help you get there is irrelevant. A lot of businesses that I've worked in, I have found more times than not, a lot of them actually focus so much on the bottom line, focus so much on what it is that they are there to do, what products they are selling, what services they are selling, and very little on people, right? And I think that is a huge, huge downfall of a lot of organizations. The bigger ones are a little bit more established, and I think there are intricacies that come with being a much bigger organization. But when you are small and starting out, the people you have matter in the business. And I think we're going to delve into a little bit of this as to why. Why does it matter in terms of the people that you bring on, and what are the things that you should be looking out for, right? So remember this as you are going through, building your business. Having a great vision without having the right people is not going to get you to where it is you want. I wanted to start off the session by sharing this quote by Steve Jobs, which really just speaks so much to what it is I'm saying, and so much to what I hold true.
That's what's in the meeting.
Is that a question?
No, sorry about that, Butlali. I
Mic is
think
on.
you can go ahead.
Okay. So one of the big things for me, guys, when I speak around people, right, and people management and why you need to bring in the right talent, a lot of organizations want to bring in best talent, but still tell them what to do, right? And from my experience, that is not how you progress in the various aspects of the different roles that you have within your role in your organization, right? So Steve Jobs says it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then still tell them what to do, right? As we think about how we hire people and the people that we want, a lot of us have big visions of the type of person that we want, and sometimes are limited by the budget to pay for those people, right? But once those people are in, are we allowing them the latitude to showcase what it is they've studied, what it is they've had exposure and experience in? Because when you hire smart people, you hire them so that they can tell you what's the best way to run those particular divisions. This happens even in big corporations, guys. I've been in big roles where I was, HR executive for particular organizations and was still being told what to do, right? By people who had not studied HR, who had not actually run any HR process with no prior knowledge. But because it's their company, yeah, because their company, they think that they have the latitude to be able to tell the smart people, the well-educated, well-experienced people in their organizations what to do. And I'm telling you from experience, organizations that have been that way are the organizations where a lot of people then leave very early, right? Because people that come with the right level of experience, right level of exposure into particular organizations are coming and they want to be able to showcase what it is they're able to do. People that are the right fit for the organization, that bring the right skill set, are coming there also for their own personal career goals, right? As we think about hiring people and the importance of hiring people, someone that comes with the right experience, make sure you're giving them the
Hi,
space to
Buhlalim.
be able to, yes.
Sorry to cut you. There's just a request that you please make the presentation full screen mode. I don't know if you've been moving through the presentation, but it's still stuck on the first page on my side.
It is in full screen mode on my end. Are we on the Steve? Are you on the Steve Jobs quote?
It's still on the front page on my side. So maybe
Ready?
try resharing again.
Thank you for that. Let me stop sharing and let's start again.
All right.
What are you seeing now?
The introduction slide. Okay, it's moving. It's moving. I see the Steve Jobs quote now. Thank you.
Hey, wonderful. Thanks for letting me know. Um, okay, I think what I was saying in terms of just wrapping up this particular point as we head into some of the intricacies around uh, talent acquisition, recruitment, is let's be careful. Let's be careful that as we hire people, I know we are the founders of our organizations. We are partners with other people that are running organizations as entrepreneurs. Let's be mindful that as we invest in people and we invest talent for the organization, allow for them to partner with you in their various expertise, right? Allow for them to feel that they can grow ownership of the role that you have given them, because that is how we are going to gain the most out of the people that we hire. So that I wanted to share this quote as we are starting, so that as we go through some of the different aspects around recruitment, best practices around it, remember this quote, right? That it doesn't make sense to hire smart people, then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. Recruitment for me is a partnership. You're bringing someone on board for their expertise. They are coming on board, for their own personal career growth, right? So it's a give and take. It's a give and take in the world of work, right? So let's remember that, and let's remember, um, you know, this quote as well as we keep going into the next session. So just starting off, just from a talent acquisition and recruitment perspective, I think it's so important for us to distinguish the difference between recruitment and talent acquisition, right? A lot of times these two words are used interchangeably. somewhat mean the same thing, but there's definitely some nuances there that I'd like to highlight for us today. Now, a lot of organizations, particularly, very high-paced, high turnover kind of spaces, they definitely start off by just looking at recruitment as the way in which they get their talent in. Recruitment, guys, is very reactive, right? You're thinking about the short term. A role has come up now. We need because we need to move on with this particular project, or we need to have the right level of staff and capacity in a particular space. And all that you are doing there is basic recruiting process. You're advertising it somewhere, you're shortlisting it, you then screen the applications that have come in, you go through interview and selection, and then you onboard the person, right? So this is the basic recruitment process. All organization, the foundation of talent acquisition and recruitment are these basic principles. How do we advertise, screen, shortlist, interview, select, and onboard? But more recently, organizations are realizing that talent actually matters. It's not just about filling a seat. It's not just about, we've got this vacancy, let's put a bum in this seat, right? We need to start being a lot more strategic as we think about these things. And even more so as you start off as an entrepreneur, because you don't have the resources a lot of times to then just hire as many people as you want. You have to be strategic about, what does my business need? How can I get the most skill set out of a person to be able to help me on multiple projects, right? I've realized that working on my own or being an entrepreneur and trying to run my own thing, I am wearing so many different hats at any given point in time, right? From being the person that does the finance, to being the person that does the admin, to being the person that's pitching up, doing the presentations, to writing the presentations. Every single aspect of the work that I do sits with me, right? And as you keep growing as an organization, as you keep building on and acquiring people to come and help you, it is so important that we are strategic in how we hire the people. And so it's so important that we start adopting a lot more of a proactive long-term view of talent acquisition, right? Of acquiring talent within our organizations. Now, what this means that you start building in activities such as talent pipelining, building relationships, right? Networking, workforce planning. You think about employer branding. You start thinking about talent pool development. This, guys, is one of the most effective ways, right, of attracting the right talent to the organization. Recruitment fills a seat, talent acquisition attracts the right talent. And how do we go about attracting? You start with building an employer brand, right? As you're building an employer brand, how do you then continue to position yourself as an organization? How do you continue to go to particular events that are going to help you network with the right levels of people? How do you leverage off of relationships? We're going to speak about some of these things in a bit more in depth just now. But talent acquisition is having a long-term view. You're not waiting for a role to be available within the organization for you to start looking for someone. You already know what you are projecting, how you're projecting to grow as an organization. You already know the type of talent you are going to need a year from now, 2 years from now. And this all starts, guys, with setting objectives, right? We're not going to speak too much about business related things, but setting objectives for your business is going to help you align the type of talent that you're going to need at particular times in the organization. So recruiting is, you've waited. Now there's a gap in the organization. I need to fill the gap. Talent acquisition is thinking long term. I may not have a gap now, but what are the things and activities that I am doing consistently that are going to allow for me to be positioned well enough as an employer in the eyes of those passive candidates that are in the industry, right? So that should an opportunity come up, I already know which people to speak to. I already know which platforms are going to allow me to get the right types of people to be coming into the organization, right? So talent acquisition is having a long-term view, is making sure that We are constantly putting ourselves out there to be able to attract the right talent. One of the organizations that I've worked for, which is Bowman's, it's a law firm, we were hiring talent 2 to 3 years ahead of time. We were that's what talent pipelining is. We're building our talent pipeline 2 to 3 years ahead of time. Why? Because we understood that it is a competitive market. We understood that if we are not first to getting the talent in the organization, our competitors are going to be the first to get the right talent in the organization. And in order for us to start doing that kind of work, in order for us to start recruiting at that kind of level, it was so important that we're mindful of what it is we say about ourselves, how it is we position ourselves from a social media perspective. It was important that we were front of mind for the candidates that we're looking for. It was important that as we went out and started looking for the right type of young talent to come into the organizations, we were planning a year ahead for the types of activities, for the types of events we're going to be running. We had to constantly ask ourselves, how can we add value to the people that we are looking to recruit? We may need them now, we may need them 2 years from now, but do they know about us? Do they know that we are the kind of place that they want to work for? How are we continuously positioning ourselves in the market to allow for us to continuously get the right talent knocking on our doors, right? When we start playing in that kind of space, guys, that's when you start realizing that the benefits, the fruits of being able to be proactive in how you recruit people, it definitely, definitely benefits you. We had people waiting for us to first tell them they'd have 1 or 2 other jobs, but they're waiting to hear whether we are taking them or not before they get back to other people. Why? We created a desire for them to want to work for us, right? So as we start, and don't think that you need to be a big organization to do this. Part of what I teach when I speak about personal branding is the importance of how you continuously position yourself as a brand. When you think about personal branding, you're thinking about, how do I want people to see me? What do I want people to know me for? I may be a one-man show now, but what do I want people to know me for? By the time I say I've got a role that I want to fill, people know of me, they know what I'm about, right? They've attended 1 or 2 that I've done, they've attended master classes, they know what it is that I speak to, right? Don't you think that's going to make it that much easier to say, that's who I want to work for? But if you are not intentionally putting yourself out there, you're not intentionally positioning yourself from an employer brand perspective, anyone who needs a job is going to knock on your door. They don't care who you are. They don't know about you, because why? You haven't been intentional about doing it. So the difference between talent acquisition and recruitment is intentionality, right? Being intentional about how we are planning to grow our businesses is what us really put forth a more proactive and long-term view around talent. So that is the importance, guys, of effective recruitment. The one aspect, the role is there, we just need to fill it. The other aspect is thinking long-term, right? And part of the long-term process is really just around workforce planning. I know a lot of you may have heard this word before, some of you may be hearing it for the first time, but really all that it is ensuring, right, that as an organization, we have the right people with the right skill set in the right roles and at the right time. Workforce intentionality, and that's why that is one of the key activities just from a talent acquisition perspective. So I hope that this has helped you understand the difference between recruiting and doing talent acquisition. The slides that we're going to go through next is really just going to build on a little bit more around more of the talent acquisition perspective. We will go through best practice recruiting process, which is just going to help you understand what the right kind of recruiting process looks like. But talent acquisition is definitely a key aspect that I want us to think about. But before we get into some of those nitty-gritties, right, around talent acquisition, we need to understand why it actually matters, right? As small, medium enterprises, as entrepreneurs, as that are starting out, one of the two aspects that we are always looking for, we are wanting to grow as a business, but equally we're wanting to grow efficiently. So we're wanting to spend as little as possible and maximize growth as much as possible, right? And so it's so important that we and the impact of talent on business growth and on cost efficiency, right? So when you think about the aspect around business, the biggest difference, right, between big organizations and smaller organizations or entrepreneurs, startup organizations, is that organizations, it's so easy to be able to get people coming into roles that are more specialized, right? Because we've got thousands of employees. And with employees, you now can have specialist departments, specialist teams doing specialist functions. I've worked in massive organizations such as the Standard Banks of the world, right? And the HR team is massive. Why? Because we've got such a huge headcount that we are dealing with. It's a massive organization. And because of that, you have specialists within HR, people specializing in payroll, people specializing in just young talent, people specializing in talent development, learning and development, right? But when you're smaller, and I've worked in startup companies before, you're a one-man HR show. There's one or two of you in HR, and you're doing a little bit of everything in the organization, right? You're having to wear multiple hats at any given point in time. And so when you are smaller as an organization, it matters more the type of talent you bring in, because you need someone who is multi-skilled. You're needing someone who's going to wear multiple hats for you and do it efficiently. Hiring the right talent, guys, is what's going to boost productivity, efficiency, and innovation in your organizations. And this is one of the most essential things in trying to scale a smaller business, right? So as a smaller business, you're wanting to maximize the growth of the business. It's important that you're willing to invest in someone that is going to wear multiple hats. And so when you think about maximizing your business growth, doing a recruitment process is not the most efficient way of doing it. You need to be thinking long term. You need to be thinking, what skill sets are going to help me gain as much as I can from a business growth perspective? What kind of person am I going to be able to attract that's going to want to work for my organization and help me grow and scale? Yes, you need someone that you can have a referral from, someone that you can tap into your network and can be referred to you. So maximizing business growth is a massive business objective when you are starting out, right? And that is why how you hire people, who you hire in your space matters, because it has a direct impact on your business growth, right? The downfall of not paying attention to the type of people that we bring in is that it will end up costing us, right? We end up spending more money because we hire someone into a role within the first 3 to 6 months. Well, really in the first 3 months, they are all guns blazing. They're wanting to prove, right? After some time, when they realize that, yeah, there's a lot to do here. There's a lot to do. Am I up for it, right? Things start dwindling after some time if you haven't paid attention to the type of person that you bring in and how you bring them in, right? And so by making sure that we're hiring the right person, what that helps us with is minimizing the risk of bad hires, because bad hires cost you. A bad hire can lead to time wasted. It can lead to resource wastage. You lose revenue just due to poor performance of the individual. So when we don't pay attention to the type of person that we're bringing in, and we rush through a recruiting process, we are inconsistent around how we do a recruiting process, we end up having people that are bad hires for the organization, and eventually they end up costing us more. Because in the time that they are still scaling, in the time they're still onboarding, in the time you're still teaching them, you are using your time, you're using resources to enable them to upskill so that they can be a lot more effective. So if they are leaving after 6 months, you are never getting to the point where you are gaining value from them, right? Because you've spent all your time training, onboarding them into the business, giving them leeway because you understand that they are learning. But in that learning process, you need to know that you are going to eventually gain. You are eventually going to gain value from them as well. So these are the two things I want us to constantly think about as running our organizations, that doing talent right the first time will help us maximize business growth and will help us minimize the risk of bad hires in an organization. I saw there was a hand that went up. I'm not too sure if the hand is still up or there's a question. Was it you, Cedric? I think I saw a hand going up, but just let me know if I'm mistaken.
Cedric, I don't know if you have a question. Oh, I see Comfort had his hand up. So maybe Comfort, you can go, and then we'll come back to Cedric.
Sure, thanks. I was actually not sure when to ask, but I do have quite a number of questions. Sure. Okay, so
I may address some of those questions
yeah,
later in the presentation, but maybe
sure.
tell me what your questions are.
So as I'm
Something that I'm
listening,
not going to address, I can answer now.
so as I'm listening to you, there's a couple of things that I've picked up so far. So on the issue of workforce planning, right, and sort of planning 2 to 3 years in advance, etc. I just wanted to know what does workforce planning look like, right, in the context of a big business, and then how can we scale that to suit a small business? Like, is it like, do you just write a couple of notes on a piece of paper, like, I think I will need an accountant in 5 years' time. I think I will need, so like, I want to know, how does workforce planning actually look like for you to be able to say, I have done my workforce planning and I'm keeping track of the types of roles that will be required 5, 10 years from now in my business, right? The second aspect is, you said you should pay attention to how you hire, right?
Yes.
And my question is, how should we actually hire? And sort of what are the steps to hiring? Because I'll use, like, I think for most businesses, it's a case of you meet someone, they look like, typically they're probably your friend or your colleague that you already know. They're good in something. You talk about, I'd like you to do X and Y for me. And you sort of just start working, and, the contract and, paperwork becomes something that comes after the fact. So there's no real process. I don't know if any of the entrepreneurs on the call do have some kind of solid process that they follow, but I just want to know, like, ideally, what are the steps? And obviously, you don't want to create steps that, like, I know for corporates, you would have like round 1 interviews, round 2 interviews, round 3 interviews. Like, as a small business, I don't think you have the time to be doing round 1 and round 2. You just find the person that you think can do the job, and obviously they tell you, yeah, I'm good at this. You look at the CV, you're like, this person is good. Then you bring them in.
Yeah.
And then this leads me to my third question, which is, now that you've brought the person in and you realize that they're a bad hire, I was reading something, I think it was one of these Lexis, one of these labor law, um, what do you call them, articles. And it sort of indicates how the labor laws in South Africa are skewed towards the employee and do very little to protect the employer. And if you have a bad hire, how then do you protect yourself legally from a bad hire, right? Because then now you find yourself going to CCMA, paying stuff. Now you need to fork out money. It costs you more to let go of a bad hire, but you only know once you've hired them that they are a bad hire. So that's sort of, in a broad sense, my question is really workforce planning. How do you then hire? What are the steps to actually hiring someone? And then finally, if you realize that you've made a bad hire, what are then the steps ideally that you should go through to let go of a bad hire whilst protecting yourself legally?
Fantastic questions, Comfort. And I think there's Your first question just around workforce planning, right? I know I gave an example of how we hired 2 to 3 years ahead of time. It was the first time I've ever that in an organization. I had worked for bigger organizations before. So I must say it was to understanding the type of talent that you're constantly having, because they were running a graduate program. And so we knew single year we had to have an intake of graduates, right? Because it was a structured program that we were running. And therefore, we know exactly the kind of talent we are looking for year in, year out, and how many we need in order for us to be able to function as an organization and have the right young talent in the business. The beauty of being able to have kinds of programs in your business is that it costs less than hiring people externally for more senior roles, but also you're giving yourself an opportunity to build from the bottom up. Graduates that come straight from university allow for you to mold them. You allow for them to adapt and become part of the organization, so that eventually when they are starting to add value in the organization, they are part and parcel through being part of the organization from the beginning within their careers, right? So they had a long-term plan. This is something they've been doing for 10, 20 years. And with time, as they continue to scale as a business, they realize that the type of talent we need 40 of the top talent across the country across these different offices. And so that is the reason why we were able to do that kind of thing, right, from a graduate perspective. Even you can still do talent pipelining from a more senior perspective, right? So as you continue, and that falls what workforce planning is, which is one of your questions around how do you go about actually doing workforce planning. It really begins with starting to understand business objectives, right? What is it that I'm wanting to grow into? What is it that my clients or customers need most? And once you start understanding what it is that your company and your clients need most, that is when you start analyzing what capabilities you have internally. A lot of times when you're starting an organization from scratch, you tend to go with people that you know, right? A friend that can help you with something, a relative that can help you with something. Road. And I know it just doesn't, it's not the best way of trying to grow your business, because when you start, spending a lot of time with friends, family, a lot of like, but okay, I'll get back to you. Like that's been my experience, right? They can help you to a certain extent, but because you're so familiar, it's not an employer-employee relationship. So that line starts being a little bit blurred. You start, but my friend, remember I told you I've got this thing, I'll come back and push it out to next week. Can we push it out to next month? I've still got this and this to do on a personal basis. Whereas if they were working for an employer, they know they can't get around doing that. Why? There are certain HR policies in place that don't allow for them to just decide how and when they want to do things. Now that sometimes then becomes the smaller organizations, is that we don't have the right paperwork in place. If you want to safeguard yourself as an organization, you need to have the right paperwork in place. You need to have a solid contract that you've made someone sign that stipulates the working hours, that stipulates how you remunerate, how you do leave, that stipulates all of these things. But we don't think about these things when we are smaller, because we just want to get work done. We just want someone that's going to help alleviate the multiple hats that we are wearing on a day-to-day basis, right? So I'm answering a little bit of each of your questions, because I'm mindful that some of it is going to be explained, especially the recruiting one, the processes is going to be explained later in the presentation. But workforce planning, to wrap it up for you, is forecasting what the business needs, what your clients need, asking yourself, do I have the right staff in the role? And what are the capabilities of the people I have in the role? Once you understand that, you start identifying what are the gaps that I haven't filled for, that I haven't thought through, right? And then you start developing a strategy to hire, train, and retain people that are going to help you in your long-term business objective. So it is something that I think is still important to do even as a small business, because it allows you to start hiring right from the beginning. Don't hire based on, oh, I just need someone to help me with this admin thing, right? What else do you need in your business? What needs do you have that are going to actually shift the needle, that are going to make a difference, that are going to help you scale as a business? Then you hire for that and you make sure that the right skill sets are present within the people that you are hiring. So I hope that's answering you to some level. Let me maybe, just for the sake of time, go through the rest of the presentation. And if there are other aspects that have not been addressed, I will definitely make sure to give some time at the end for further questioning.
Cool.
Is that okay? Does that help you a bit, Comfort?
That's good. That's good. Thanks.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, let me just get back to the presentation. Here we go. Okay, so we've spoken about why talent matters and the two key levers that are so important for us to always have at the top of our minds as smaller organizations, right? Now, before you go to market, and hopefully this will start helping you answer some of the questions, Comfort, just around understanding your talent needs. This is what I was speaking about. It's part of workforce planning, right? Learning to align your recruiting efforts with the business strategy is what's going to be important, because that's what's going to ensure that we have the right people in place to drive growth, innovation, and operational success of the business. Now, when you spoke a little bit about the recruiting process and what is the right recruiting process. Like, we don't necessarily have stage 1, stage 2, panel interviews, all of that kind of thing, right? But what we do have is the ability to scope what it is we are looking for. Now, instead of hiring a friend because you know they've got some level of skill set, or a family member because you know that they are passionate, you know, it's a side gig for them, they're passionate about it, actually start scoping out what the role is that you need. Understand what is the ideal person in this particular role. If you need someone that's going to do your marketing, right, or that's going to do your social media, what does it take, or what should a person as a social media manager have as a skill set, right? That comes to the core competencies. What are the skill sets I'm looking for that must be there in this particular role? Then it's understanding from your perspective, what am I hiring for? Once you can put together a job description, that's the best place to start. You put together a job description first of what it is you are looking for. You don't immediately go out to market and start asking friends if they know someone that can do a particular aspect of the job. No, you scope out the job yourself. Planning is an important part of doing an effective recruiting process. What role am I looking for? What is the title of this role? What is the job summary or overview? What am I expecting this person to be able to do? Right? Then that's going to help you detail out what the job responsibilities or the duties are of that particular role. Then that's also going to help you understand what qualifications should this person actually have to be able to fulfill the role that I'm looking for. Then you start going into a bit more detail around what key competencies does the person need to have in order to fulfill this role. Why is this important, guys? This is absolutely crucial, because if you are not mapping out what it is you need in the talent that you want to hire in your space, you will not know whether you are making a right hire or not, because what are you basing it off of? If you are thumb sucking a few responsibilities in your head that someone needs to do, but you haven't scoped it, you haven't looked at what job title it is, you haven't looked at what you expect them to do holistically, you haven't mapped it back to the business strategy, right? The planning part is the most crucial part. It's like going into your car, setting your GPS and saying, I want to go somewhere. Where? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to land up? Aligning your business strategy and then saying, these are the kind of people that are going to help me get here, is the best place to start, right? So once you know the kind of roles you are looking for and you have clarity on that, even if you want to consider your friend, now you are considering your friend off the back of a job description, a role description. You can then, after interviewing your friend and interviewing a few other people, you'll maybe then realize that my friend only has 50% of what it is I actually need for this role to be effective, right? So the first place to start is understanding, what do I need in the person who's going to be in this role? And you have to scope it out all the way from key competencies, from the required qualifications, from the job responsibilities, from the title. And it's so easy, guys. A lot of times when I'm trying to look for a particular role and I want to scope out what that looks like, I go on LinkedIn. I research those types of roles. What are the titles? What are the market-related titles that go with this kind of role? What are the job descriptions? If you go into the job section of LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of jobs that are posted on LinkedIn. Go into them. There's job descriptions there. That's going to help you get a better sense of what it is required of the person that's going to be doing a particular role, right? That's how you start getting a sense of what it is that you are looking for. So you don't come up with this from your own mind somewhere. Leverage people that you know, leverage HR professionals that you know, use resources such as social media platforms that are going to help you scope out what the job role actually is. You also need to understand, for the role that I'm looking for at this particular level and title I'm looking for, what are the compensation and benefits that I'm willing to give for it? What are the working conditions? How flexible is it? Is it all work from home? Do you have to come into the office? What is the reporting structure? Why does it make sense for it to report there? Yeah. Understanding and having role clarity is going to help you when you start recruiting. And that's the best place to start. Organizations do this. As a small organization, it's even more critical to have job and role profiles, right? And when you start thinking about the key competencies here, I want us to think broader than just, can you do marketing? Can you do social media? Where have you done social? We need to be thinking about hard skills, soft skills. If you're wanting to scale your company, guys, you need to think long-term about your talent that you're bringing in. Why do soft skills matter? Soft skills such as communication, collaboration, problem solving, adaptability, emotional intelligence, those are things you need to be testing for as you recruit someone, right? Those are the core competencies that you need. Why? People that are good at soft skills are great at working with other people, are great at being able to be a long-term employee in the organization. People that lack soft skills rub people up the wrong way, are not effective team players. And eventually, those are the kind of people you just don't want to work for. You don't want to work with. So soft skills, making sure that as you scope out the role, you know the key soft skills that are important for you, whether you're a 2-man team, a 10-man team, a 50-man organization, understanding that people that come as holistic as possible is what's going to help drive your business growth. So as you think about hard skills are things that they have had to learn, right? Through actually doing the work, studies, and we're thinking about things such as data analysis. So depending on what role it is you're looking for, right? Programmers, project managers, people that do technical writing pieces, graphic designers, people that are able to do financial analysis. These are core hard skills. These are technical skills that they've had to learn through or through actually doing the role over and over again. So as you scope out what your talent needs are, you think about the job profile, but then you think very carefully around, what hard skills do I need? What soft skills do I need? And now, as you continue with your recruiting process, you've got a profile that you are judging people against. As you recruit people, as you ask them specific interview questions, the interview questions that you're asking them all roll back to the role that you are looking for. We don't thumbsuck an interview. We don't just have a coffee and chat as an interview. You have to be strategic around the kind of questions that you are asking, because you want to pick up on some of the behaviors. You want to pick up on competencies. You want to pick up on what some of their long-term vision and goals are. And that's how you start using that intel that you gain through a recruiting and an process to align it back to the role that you say you're looking for, to align it back to the business strategy as well. So this is the crux, most important part of starting a recruiting process, right? You may not have all of these put together as yet. Start putting it together. If you've got a small HR team, start putting together the job profiles of the people in your team so that they have clarity around what it is they sign for, but you also have clarity around why it is you need that role structured in that particular way. Now, one of the key things to then speak about, now that you've identified what your core person looks like, right? What your ideal employee looks like. Sorry, before we get to strategies, and I know I'm going to touch on later, within understanding your talent needs, you need to wear a hat of understanding your organization. Hiring people from a fit perspective is crucial, right? And by culture fit, I mean, what are the core vision, mission, values of your organization? What is it that your organization stands for? What is it that you expect people, how do you expect people to behave in your organization, right? Looking for from people that you hire in your organization so they're adding value to the organization, so that they are fitting well into the culture of the organization. Those aspects are key, right? And those are some of the things in your job description you start putting into your job summary or the overview of the role of the organization. That starts painting a picture for the people, for candidates that are out there in terms of what it is you're looking for from a culture fit perspective. Well, and culture fit is crucial. Sometimes you have the right person with the right skills, but they just don't get on with the rest of the people, right? So not a personal relationship, but I mean from a culture perspective, you may have a culture in your organization that is very high paced, that expects people to be go-getters in nature, that expects people to want to work at a very fast pace, turn around things at a fast pace, people that are self-driven, right? The culture of the organization, or your culture of the organization could be that we are all creatives, right? So there's a certain level of adaptability, there's a certain level of, working on your own, ideating, creating. So if you're bringing someone in that doesn't have a creative streak in them or creative bone in them, but maybe the role is like an HR related role, or it's a more professional, what word am I looking for? It's like a finance role, or a professional service kind of role, but they're coming into a space that is creative. They're coming into a space that's a lot more relaxed. And by relaxed, I mean it's not, moving from a bank to going into an advertising agency. The culture, the feel of the place, very, very different. So be mindful when you bring in someone in terms of their previous experience and their previous exposure and the kind of organizations they've worked for. Make sure that they can easily fit into the culture of the organization that you are trying to build in your organization. Once we have that painted out and we've done some of that planning ahead of time, now we need to look at what are the effective sourcing strategies that we should be considering as SSMEs, right? A lot of these, is everyone seeing the slide around talent sourcing strategies?
Yes, we are, Buhlali.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, awesome. So one of the most effective ways, guys, of being able to attract and hire the right people, despite having limited resources compared to larger organizations, is, as I've said before, leveraging on your network. As a business owner, I think one of the most critical things that you should be doing is building networks. There's times where I attend events, networking events, industry-related events. I may not feel like being at an event that evening, but I understand the purpose behind it. I understand that by the time I leave this event, I need to have met at least 2 or 3 new people in the industry. I need to have introduced myself to different people that I have not met before. I need to have built my network, right? And so if you're not doing that physically at events, you're doing it digitally on social media. right? So these are the types of things we need to be thinking about as business owners, because leveraging your network is going to help you use the connections you have within the industry to get the right people in your business, right? And whether you do that through local business groups, right, that you have, or professional associations to find potential candidates, you need to be thinking about, how am I as a business owner continuously putting myself out there? You cannot be the kind of business owner that is sitting, working from home or from your office day in, day out, and you don't spend the time networking. Networking is absolutely important just from a business perspective, but also when you're sourcing for talent, it's important to know people in the industry, because having a referral from someone that's in the industry actually just has so much more weight, right, than you trying to just put out an advert and seeing what comes in from the advert. Building a strong employer brand. EB stands for employer brand. Being mindful around how it is we position ourselves as an organization. How do we go about doing it? When do we go about doing it? Right? And that ties in with using your network, putting yourself out there. So I said, whether it's in person or digitally, those are the different sourcing strategies that you need to be thinking about when you are small. Because before you know it, someone is referred to you through a network that you made 2 months ago at an event, right? That's how I've gotten so much business in the last year and a half from people that sometimes I don't even know. And when I ask them, how do you know about me? Oh, Butlale, I've seen what you do on YouTube. Or, oh, I saw, I follow you on LinkedIn and I see the work that you're putting out there. Oh, I spoke to someone that happened to know you, that worked with you at a certain point in time, and they referred me to you, right? That's how you start growing as a small business. So being mindful, and I'm only in these sourcing strategies because I feel they're the most relevant for the group that I'm speaking to today. Being mindful of the network and the relationships that you are building is crucial. But also, when you build those relationships, who do people know you to be? How do people identify you and your organization? Having a strong employer brand, we're going to speak about employer branding just now in a bit more depth, right? Helps you differentiate yourself from competitors. What is your unique value proposition as an organization, right? And why does that make it attractive for someone to come and work with you? So focusing on your employee value proposition by using social media to promote what the organization does and build relationships is crucial in terms of finding the right talent for your role. One of the key ways to do it, once again, is optimizing your online presence, right? Using platforms such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, sharing your job posts around your network, right? Making sure that you are promoting company updates, you're promoting work or projects that the company has done, that they have completed, right? Tailoring your content to reflect what your company is about is important. So if you're a one-man team, learning to brand yourself, you are your brand, right? You and your brand, you and your company brand must not be two very different things. So that's where personal branding comes in, understanding who it is you say you are and what you stand for. How do you promote that online, right? That's a topic for another day. How do you promote yourself? How do you build a personal brand for yourself online? Because that then inevitably connects back to the work that you do, right? So being able to optimize online presence is absolutely important. Then also be open to exploring freelance and gig platforms, right? Finding people that are doing freelancing, that are doing project-based work is going to help you eventually comfort. I think you asked a question about, when you've had a bad hire, getting into long-term permanent agreements when you're small is not the wisest decision, right? Get people on, test them out on a project. Get on because you've got a year to deliver on a particular project. You put them on that project. Look for people that are doing freelance work, right? On places like Fiverr and find people. There's people that don't have to be based in South Africa for you to be able to hire them. They can do some of your media or some of your project-based work from wherever they are. Familiarize yourself, guys, with freelancing platforms so that you can start testing out people through doing that. Even if you start putting them on a short-term project, a 3-month project, a 6-month project, right? Start considering fixed-term contracts for the people that you hire. Test them out through that. If after 3 months, 6 months, it is the best decision you've made, you can then have a longer conversation thereafter around making them permanent in the role. But if you're starting permanent and you don't know, you haven't tested the capability of you bringing in, you may end up finding yourself having made a bad hire, and now it's a lot more difficult to get out of, right? So let's start thinking, let's start opening our minds around the types of people and talent we can be bringing in. Let's test people through shorter term, fixed term contracts. Think around working, having freelancers, right? And make sure that we are optimizing consistently our online presence. We are always conscious of building our employer brand and that we are leveraging the network that we have. These are such effective strategies when you're starting out, when you're a small organization, to start bringing in the right talent into the organization. And this is what's going to help you really be able to maintain that as we go through. We are going to speak a bit around retaining talent. What are some of the key things you should be thinking about in terms of now you've got someone on board, what do I need to be thinking about? I need to be engaging with them consistently so that there are people that want to stay in the organization in the long term as well. Because eventually you want to retain the people that are doing well in the organization. And if you're not mindful and intentional about doing it, it's not going to happen on its own. Yeah. So these are the key sourcing strategies that I thought could be very, very useful for you in terms of finding the right talent and positioning yourself as a personal brand, a brand as well in the market. Now, let's just speak about employer branding for a little bit, right? Slightly different from personal branding. Some of the very similar concepts that we are speaking about here. Now, employer branding is thinking about what and thinking about and defining what your employee value proposition is. An employee value proposition is basically, in a nutshell, saying this is what we are looking for in the organization, and this is what we are willing to give to people working in our organization, right? In the position to say, we want to choose these kinds of people, but we are willing to give these kinds of benefits. It's a give and take. Employee value proposition. Why should someone want to work for you? Yes, you've scoped out your role. You are clear about the job that you're looking for. Must they come work for you? Once as organizations, we are clear on what our employee value proposition is, that's what you then saying consistently as you promote yourself on social media, in person. You start speaking about that. You start promoting that part, right? That's how you start building your. So it's about determining what makes your company unique and why people should choose to work for you. One of the key things that I've loved from my experience, I've worked for organizations that were employers of choice in the industry. So one of the first 2 companies I worked for, the employers of choice in the industry, right? And I learned from that what made them employers of choice. Then I intentionally went into a role that was not voted employer of choice because I wanted to test myself. I wanted to test my experience. And I set a goal for myself that I'm going to make sure that by the time I leave this place, they are voted employer of choice. Right? That boils down to employer branding. Being known as employer of choice boils down to how you are seen, perceived, understood in the market, right? So these are things where you speak and you think about company culture. That's why I say to you, finding people that are a culture fit to the organization is crucial, because the more people are culture fit to the organization, the more that you start building the right kind of culture, the more that you are amplifying your employer brand, right? So You think about things around company culture. You think about things around career development. Yes, we've scoped out what we need in the organization, but what are we giving back? Right? We want someone that's going to wear multiple hats, that's going to work magic in the organization. What are they getting back for it? What should make them want to stay with you? We need to think broader than a salary. A lot of people I speak to say, well, Bukhali, I'm paying them. That's what they're getting. I'm paying them. I'm like, they can be paid anywhere. If you've got really good talent in your organization, they can go to any organization and get paid there. What makes them want to stay is the question. So the give and take is not I pay you a salary, but you come with all your skill set and I need you to work 14 hours a day and I need you around the clock on the weekends. You must be on call, but I'm paying you a salary. No, guys, we need to think past that. We need to think past salary. We need to think about development opportunities. How are we giving back to their career development outside of, but I'm giving them the exposure and the experience, right? What opportunities are we looking out for them? How do we structure work-life balance into it, right? How do we make it purposeful work, impact-driven work, right? A lot of the young people you're hiring today are Generation Z. These candidates want to be a part of something that's greater than them, that has a bigger mission, that has a bigger impact, that allows them to do things that are out of the ordinary, that allows them to make an impact that is tangible, right? So by being able to clearly define and communicate what your employee value proposition is, in your employer branding materials, in how you put yourself out there on social media, is going to allow you to really position yourself as an organization where people should want to come and work, right? And it will resonate with the right kind of people. Remember, I said culture fit is crucial. The more you position yourself out there in terms of what it is you stand for as an organization, what kind of people you have, what kind of culture you have, the people that see that feel like that's where I want to work, are most likely the people that are the best culture fit for the organization, because there's something about your material that resonates with them. There's something about you as a person and as you put yourself out there that resonates with them. Those are the people you want to be attracting. You don't want to be attracting, I need a job kind of person. You don't want to be attracting someone that just, I want the next step in my career. I don't like where I'm working. I just need another launch pad. You don't want to become a launch pad for people. You want to attract the kind of people that resonate with who you are as an organization, because they are the ones that are most likely to stay in the long term, because they resonate with what you do, who you are, and it speaks to them. There's an alignment in values, right? And that's why I say defining your employee value proposition is a give and take. This is who we are looking for. This is what we are willing to give. How do you showcase your culture, right? Behind the scenes content, what you guys are up to, how you give back. What are some of the CSI projects that you are running? Why is that important to your organization? Some of the day-to-day activities, some of the cool projects that you are running, right? Some of the cool clients that you've landed, right? Just giving an authentic view of the company culture and what it is that you're about is what's going to be important. Look for opportunities as business owners to put yourself out there. Find platforms, find podcasts that you can be interviewed in that are going to put you out there, that are going to advertise you to an audience that may not even know who you are. There's opportunities sometimes that come my way around, Bukhali, can you come speak about this particular topic on this podcast, right? I can speak to the topic. It may not be related to the business that I do, but I know that is an opportunity to market myself. I'm giving value by being a guest on the podcast, but I'm gaining value by the people that are going to be watching. You never know where those things are going to link up eventually, right? So being someone that is able to showcase who you are as a personal brand and an employer brand by regularly posting about certain updates that are important, that are cool, that you want people to know about is what's going to be important, right? But lastly, also looking internally, how do you promote your employer brand? Promoting employee engagement, The people you have internally are your biggest advocates. Word of mouth is the most effective way of selling your brand. So the people that work for you need to speak well of the brand. And it's not you going back now and saying, guys, how do you speak about our brand? No, it's you going back and starting to be the kind of employer that engages your people in a way that makes them love working there. Being an employer that wants to know how your people are doing. Being an employer that cares about where there are challenges in the organization, how you can be someone that fits into that, or someone that enables them to be able to be better at what they're doing. People that work for you need to feel valued, appreciated, right? And that boils down to, once again, what I said earlier around, what are you giving them? How are you investing in their well-being? How are you investing in their development? Those are things we need to be thinking about as smaller organizations, particularly because our aim is to scale, right? Our aim is to maximize business growth as well. So making sure that we're really gathering, acting on feedback, soliciting feedback from people internally, because we want to create the kind of culture that says we see you, we value you, and you belong with us, right? If you've got bad hires in your organization, how are you dealing with that in a way that's not going to land you in the CCMA, right? How are you proactively ensuring that you are having the right performance conversations with them that allow them to see that they are not cutting it, that allow them to see this is where you need to pull up your socks, right? You're not waiting for them to make a mistake and then shouting at them in front of everyone else. You're not making their life miserable. The more you try and make someone's life miserable, someone that you feel is a bad hire in the organization, the more making up things against yourself that they can use at a CCMA, right? Around the working conditions. So we need to be mindful around whether we've got employees that are great for the organization or not. How we treat the people that we have, we need to treat them with integrity, we need to treat them with respect, and we need to be having open, honest, transparent conversations around where they are at and them not being able to fulfill the role, or those that are fulfilling the role, incentivizing them, right? How are we motivating them to continue doing the work that they're doing? Remember, when you start up your own organization, it's your baby to run. It's your responsibility to ensure that it's growing. It's not your employees' responsibility to ensure it's growing. You've got to contract them for their skills and services, and you will reward them in this and that way. But they can easily up and leave. You, as the business owner, cannot. That is your baby. So make sure you are intentional about making sure that the people you have are the right people, first and foremost. But if you have the right people in your team, how do you continue motivating them to want to encourage them to continue staying to see out the success of the organization? There's 10 minutes left. I'm going to quickly go through standard basic recruiting process. And this, once again, to the earlier questions that we received, you may not need to go through absolutely every single, you may not have to build layers into this, but these are the key aspects that you need to know and you need to follow as you are going through a recruiting process, right? This is how you do the right. And even if you've got family and friends, take them through the process, right? Because once again, you need to be able to hand on heart say, even though this is my friend, they tick all the boxes that I'm looking for. And you're also getting yourself into the discipline of doing recruiting in the right way. The most important thing out of these 5 points is consistency. If you are hiring a role in your organization, you cannot, for your friend or family member, skip a couple of steps and just have a coffee and then get to selection and offer stage. And then with other people that are direct hires that have applied directly, you're taking them from step 1, 2, 3, 5. And then someone that's a referral, we can just almost skip the screening stage. Let's just go straight to interview. No. If you don't have a consistent way of hiring for a particular role, you are not going to be able to say to yourself that you are comparing apples with apples. Some people need to go through an assessment and others can jump an assessment. How are you able to say at stage 5 that I'm selecting the right person when the selection on some people that's not there because they are friends and therefore shame? We don't need to be rigorous with them, but others have done it so that we can test their ability. How can you choose the right person is for the role if you are inconsistent in your recruitment process? So the recruitment process is there for consistency. The recruitment process is there for us to be thorough. The recruitment process is there so that we can minimize the a bad hire in our organization. And once you start skipping steps, once you start rushing through steps, you are going to inevitably miss something. You are going to miss some red flags that you could have picked up a lot earlier, and you're going to end up making a hire based on how you feel at the moment. That feel, and you move with it, right? So these 5 steps are crucial. We spoke a little bit about planning and preparation when I took you through understanding what your talent need is, right? So doing a job analysis and description, it's important, guys. It may feel tedious. It may feel like, we only a 5-man team. Why do I need to go through this for the organization? But think about yourself 5 years from now when you're a 50-man team, a 100-man team. If you are not instilling the basic principles and disciplines now when you're a 2-man team, a 3-man team, a 5-man team, when you have scaled and you've got 50, 60 employees, you're going to be scratching your head thinking, where do I start now? Because once it's that big, now it's about organizational planning. Now it's about organizational structure. Now it's about understanding employee bands. Now it's about understanding who reports into who, for what reason, what skill set do I need here that's different from what I need there. Now you're doing a much bigger exercise than you need to, right? So the planning and preparation phase, I'm not going to delve too much into that. We spoke about the importance of doing that, understanding the role, making sure you're describing it well, and making sure you've got a strategy around how am I going to interview this person? How am I going to get to my stage 5? So the first place is planning, preparation. The next place is sourcing and attraction. Where am I advertising this? Am I going through my networks? Am I posting it on my website? Am I going to post it on social media? And anywhere you post it, ask yourself why. Why am I doing it on social media? Am I going to find my people there? Should I be doing it through a recruitment agency? Is that a better way of finding people? Right? So asking yourself, where should I source the people that I'm looking for? How do I go about attracting the people that I'm looking for? Is what's going to help you start identifying your talent pool. Sometimes when you get to a point where you're wanting to hire for someone and you've interviewed 5 really strong people, some of them could be potentials for a role a year down the line, 6 months down the line. You may not need them now, but you may need them at some point. Then you start developing your talent pool. The people you've interviewed, interacted with, that you like, that you want to keep in contact with, that you want to build relationships with, so that in the event that you now need them, you've built rapport. In the sourcing and attraction phases where you start getting some of those people. And when you get people that you like, that you feel like I might need them later, store they details somewhere, create a talent pipeline. Not for roles you have now, but for roles you may need in the future. But be intentional. If you need them only 2 years from now, make sure that at some point, somewhere, you grab a coffee with them, find out how they're doing. You building the relationship, you maintaining the relationship. Even in a big organization that I worked for, that where we were hiring people 2 to 3 years ahead of time, I can't hire you now and you must come in 2028 and I never speak to you after you've signed your contract, right? How am I keeping them warm? How am I continuously developing that relationship? It can be a coffee. It can be connecting at an event again, right? It can be just staying in touch. Find ways, guys, as you're building a talent pool of how you're going to strategically maintain those relationships that you have with them, right? So that's part of the sourcing and attraction. The third part is screening and shortlisting. This is where you now go through the applications that have come in for the role and you measure it against your job description. The job clarity that we spoke about earlier, you're measuring people against that. How likely are they, or how well do they suit the role that I'm looking for? Then you start shortlisting the people that you believe have the right kind of skill sets, competencies, educational background, experience that you want to see, right? And that you want to interview. Then you go through an interview phase. Interviewing, you can't, and one of the things I want to speak about, sometimes it's actually a lot better to do bulk shortlisting, bulk interviewing, so that you're interviewing and shortlisting around the same time. If you, as applications are coming in, you are interviewing, you could find someone who you think this person is great for the role, right? You hire them. 2 weeks later, another CV comes in that's even better than the person that you hired. But because you're not consistent around this is the screening time and process, once we are done with that, then we move to the interview timeline and process, right? Because you want to know that once you've closed off your roles, once you've done accepting applications, you've screened through everyone. The people that you are now interviewing are the best of the bunch of the people that applied. So by the time you get to interview and assessment stage, you are comparing apples with apples, right? And you know that the people you are seeing are the best of those that applied. But if you're doing it haphazardly, like I say, you're going to interview someone better is going to come later on, and you're going to regret the decision you've made by not waiting and following through a process. Your interviews, guys, can just be you and that person, can be you, your HR person, and that person. You don't need to have a panel interview if you're a one-man team, obviously. But if you are big enough to have an HR person, let them come to the interview with yourself, and it can be one interview. But if you're hiring for a technical role, I would suggest come up with an assessment that you can give people that they can do, just to test out their basic capabilities. People can sell you that they've got particular capabilities, but when they actually come into the organization, it's not actually what you expected. Especially for technical roles where you're needing some of the hard skills we spoke about earlier, build in a little bit of an assessment, let them do something, project or something, like an assessment that you give to them. By the time they come to the interview, you've got the results of the assessment, you're now interviewing them. Now you're testing both the technical and the soft skills, right? And the motivation behind doing what they're doing. And lastly, selection and offer. The biggest thing here is to always be mindful to do your reference checks. Where people have worked before, do a bit of a background check on them. Make sure you've done an MIE check as well, just to safeguard yourself as well as an organization. You don't want things cropping up later that you could have avoided a lot sooner. Yeah. So these are the 5 basic steps of a recruiting process. You can add layers within this that you feel are necessary, but there's nothing here that I would suggest you take away, because all of these are the way in which you then attract talent to the organization. If we tell people what to do, we get workers. If we trust them to do their jobs, we get leaders. I love Simon Sinek. This once again resonates back to the Steve Jobs quote that I said earlier as well. So make sure that when we hire the right people, we're trusting them to do the roles that they are hired for, so they lead in the different spaces that you've hired them to do. Lastly, guys, I'm sorry, I know that we are running a little bit out of time. We started 5-10 minutes in. So I'm just going to wrap up. My last 2 slides are really just around looking at retention, right? You've got people now that you've hired in the organization. I've scoped out 6 top things that I think are so crucial in being able to retain people in the organization. Firstly, foster a positive work culture is so important. Being able to be the kind of place that is open, transparent, honest around where people are at, celebrating people, their achievements, speaking honestly and managing performance where necessary, right? Creating a space where people feel valued, respected, included, encouraging open communication and teamwork. These are things that as leaders of an organization is a must. We have to be doing these things, right? The next one, being competitive around what it is that you are offering. Yes, I don't expect you to be competitive in the big corporate space, right? Because that's not the space that you play in. But within the space that you play in, how are you being competitive? What are the comprehensive benefits that you have come up with going to enable you to attract people to want to come and work for you, right? So like I said earlier, don't just think salary, think beyond salary. That's what makes people salary they can get anywhere. What makes them stay is the extra value add that the organization brings to the table. Providing opportunities for growth is key, especially if you're trying to hire overachievers, high performers. Those are the kinds of people that are constantly wanting to grow. That's why you want to hire them. But if you are wanting to hire people that are constantly wanting to grow, how are you offering opportunities for them to continue growing once they're with you, right? Making sure people are not stagnant in their roles is so important for us to be thinking about. Creating a work-life balance for the organization, right? Making sure people enjoy working there. People are not burnt out. Sometimes we try and hire very minimal number of people, and we try and work and get as we can out of them. Burnt out people are not going to stay. They're going to end up leaving. You're going to end up starting from stage 1 again of recruiting, which once again does not maximize your business growth. So let's think about the flexibility that we're able to offer, whether there's remote work opportunities, whether you know that week it's crunch time, weekends are off, whatever it is, however it is that you put together your role, be mindful of how we are creating opportunity for balance within that so that you are maximizing what you are giving to people, but also you're getting the best out of them. We spoke already about engaging employees and getting feedback, especially as you're starting out, right? Getting feedback from the people that you work for, that work for you, is important. Having a coffee with someone, don't just meet them when it has to do with work. Have a coffee. How are you finding things? How are you finding the role? What are you struggling with? How can I help you? What is it that can make life that much easier for you? Right? And it's not about taking stuff off their plates, but it's about showing you care about them as individuals and you care about how they're able to contribute to the organization and the role at large, right? So when you meet with them, you're discussing their career, discussing performance, you're discussing work, how they're finding things. Getting that feedback is going to give you the insight you need to be able to scale your organization as well. You cannot scale an organization if you don't have the right people in the organization. And that's where, lastly, building strong relationships across the board is absolutely crucial, right? Strong manager-employee relationships are super, super important. And that's why if you've got anyone in a management position in your roles or in your organization, make in leadership, make sure they've got good interpersonal skills. I'm sure you guys have heard the quote that people don't leave an organization, they leave their man. Make sure that as you promote people into management roles, you are equipping them to be the right kind of leaders in the organization, because that's what's going to help you build stronger relationships internally. And these are some of the things that are just going to help you present yourself from an employee value proposition perspective of choice. Okay. Guys, thank you so, so much. Sorry, I feel like I rushed through the last few. I haven't opened up for too many questions after the first one. But I hope that this was helpful. I really tried to give as much value as I could in the short space of that, just around core recruiting principles, core retention principles that are so important for us to be thinking about and understand, right, if we are not doing it adequately. So thank you so much for your time. I see we've still got a hand up. I'm happy to still take questions if you're willing to stay. But thank you for those of you that do need to drop off. Thanks for making the time to be here and for attending the session today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Buhlali. That was a really amazing session. And I'm already thinking in my head, how do I convince her for a part 2? But we'll take that offline. It's fine. I think if you're happy to stay, Buhlali, we can take a couple of questions.
Sure.
I did have some questions in the chat that maybe I'll start with, and then we can move on to Comfort's question because he had his hand up. But
Yeah.
Cedric had two questions, so maybe I'll start with the first one. His first question was, what strategies can we implement to attract and hire qualified candidates while working within a tight budget? So I'm not sure if that's something that you, I think you did sort of touch on, but maybe you can speak to that question. And then his second question is, how can we balance offering competitive compensation with limited financial resources? And what low cost or cost effective recruitment methods would you recommend?
Sorry, what was that last piece? What would I recommend?
Uh,
Just the last
what
sentence.
low cost, what low cost or cost effective recruitment methods would you recommend?
Recruitment methods. Okay. Sorry, I'm just
All
writing it
right,
down so that I can remember.
no problem.
So one of the first ones one of the first questions there was around attracting high caliber talent on a tight budget, right? One of the first strategies that I think is so valuable is sometimes growing your own talent, right? There are thousands of highly qualified graduates that come out of university that never get an opportunity to work in big organizations, right? Or land their first job. Um, if you're the kind of organization that is slightly top heavy, one of my clients is quite top heavy, and they actually can afford to have the type of strategy where they build their own talent. So where they can source highly qualified candidates from university, bring them on. The cost aspect here is then the training aspect, right? Not the salary, but you then still need to train them and give them the right kind of foundation for them to be able to grow within the business. These are the guys that, once given the right opportunity and groomed within an organization, grow up to be managers in the organization, grow up to be leaders in the organization. Now, that's taking a long-term view. This is about talent attraction, right? So that's the one way of being able to do it. There's a couple of job boards that are very graduate specific. One that comes to mind is a job board called Leaply. And as an organization, if you have the capacity to hire people at a lower level, I'd say sign up with a platform like Leaply, because they have over 100,000 graduates that are on that platform across many, many different disciplines. So if you're looking to go that route, I think that is a brilliant way. And big organizations are doing this, right? That is why they're able to plan 2 to 3 years ahead of time. They know every year 40 of the top talent need to come in. Those are the people that end up being associates, senior associates, partners in the organization. Grooming talent from bottom up is effective. But if you're looking for someone that is a little bit more senior at a kind of junior management type of level, leveraging off of your networks is going to be absolutely important. Because when you're out there in the job market, when you are trying to attract people into your role, and you've got competitors that are giants in the industry also attracting into the role, you have to have something compelling to make someone want to come and work for you. Now, if you have the kind of network and relationships with other people in the industry that they can recommend people that they know, then you start having a bit more of a personalized touch in terms of how you do recruiting. You start having the conversation with the people, you scope out and understand from them what is it that they are wanting out of the role. And you ask yourself, how can we meet that? How can I meet this candidate halfway to ensure that they are getting the most out of working for us, right? But we are also able to give them the platform to be able to achieve their career goals as well. So I think it's more of being able to have the right network of people that are going to allow you to immediately start having coffees with people. If you start putting your job ad out there, you're going to catch all the fish. everyone that wants a job, right? And that's actually going to waste a lot more time, because now you've got 100 CVs to go through for this one role that you are looking for. And in that pool is not going to be the right type of mix of person or competencies or skill sets that you are looking for. So I think attracting talent can come through referrals, through your network, which I have found to be very, very effective. Or alternatively, you're growing talent in the business. So you're looking for graduates that are wanting job opportunities, but you're willing to invest the time, the year, the 6 months, train them up to then reap the benefits a bit later, a year or two later. So that would be around attracting talent. In terms of, on a tight budget, what are some of the comprehensive ways of being able to offer people benefits that maybe you just don't have? I think having the basics in place are important. So being able to offer a medical aid, there's lots of different medical aid schemes that cater for different salary bands of people, that cater for different size organizations as well, right? So being able to have some of the basics in place, such as medical aid and a risk benefit, is important to have. Even though someone's salary may not be where they want it to be, they know that at least I've got some level of medical aid or some other benefit. But then more than anything, make it a great place to work, right? Make sure that when people work for you, they love coming to work. You cannot not be offering people at the salary that they are wanting to work, that they're supposed to be at, and then making it a terrible place to work. One of the clients that I've worked for, that is one of their biggest struggles. They shortchange you, or they're not able to give you the type of salaries that other big organizations would be able to give you. And it's an NGO, so it makes sense, why not? But people are bought into the mission of what the NGO is doing. So people want to work for the organization, but they are willing then to take a pay cut to work for the organization, but they still have turnover. Why? Because the working conditions are also not then playing to your advantage, right? So make sure that you have the kind of culture in place that even though people are maybe not earning the kind of salary that they want to earn, but it's a great place to work. They bought the vision of the organization. They bought into the impact that you are making as an organization, right? So have something, think a bit deeper around your culture, a bit deeper around what your employee value proposition could be, and find ways of being able to make it a great place to work. Whether it's you have a monthly Teams lunch on a Friday, or whether you have some CSI activities that you do, once a quarter, or whether it's how you celebrate people that have really done well in the organization, right? What kind of gifting options or what kind of event or meetings do we run to celebrate people that are in the organization? Make your place a fun place to work. Make it a place that people love coming to because of the people that work there, because of the environment. So that's another, being able to compensate for not having the kind of budget that allows for you to then compensate people from a monetary perspective, right? So think about ways of making it a fun place to work. And lastly, what recruitment method I'd suggest when you've got very low costs? Well, firstly, I think if you've got a website as an organization, post on your website. But the easiest way to get the word out there that you are looking for particular positions is to post on LinkedIn as well. If on LinkedIn you do not have a large following organization, think about the network that you have. Think about the people in the industry that could repost on your behalf, right? So that you are a wider network of people that can see the job opportunities that you have. Why social media easier and low cost? You don't have to pay a platform to advertise the roles that you have on there, right? So you could post it, you could just create a post that you could post in capacity as the managing director, whatever it is your role is within the organization, or as HR, but find one or two people that are slightly more influential, have a larger following, that are within the industry, that are part of your network. This is why I was harping on building a network, because once you have a solid network of people you, it makes your life that much easier when you've got a small organization or when you're a one-man team, right? Find one or two people that can repost for you so that it's a wider market. But be very clear on the post that you have there around what are the steps. This is where you need to send your CV. Send to this email. This is the closing date. So that once you start getting the types of applicants coming in, you now have 50 people applying, as opposed to had you maybe put it out just two. Why? Because you haven't been growing your employer brand. You haven't been intentional about growing your personal brand. So it goes back, as I said before, around the importance of building and leveraging your network and then building a personal and employer brand as well. Once you have those two, it makes it much easier because you can easily get referrals and you can easily use your network to then get a wider reach of people. And once you have the applicants, it really is just a matter of setting up time to have an interview with them, whether it's an online interview or in person. Maybe the first 10 people that you interview, you shortlist to the last 3, you see the last 3 in person, you meet them, get a feel of them, right? And get a sense of who it is that you are wanting to hire. Then you do checks on your top 2 people. I always say do background checks on top 2. If anything comes out on your top candidate that you are unhappy about, or any red flags come out from a reference perspective, right? Now you've already got your second runner-up that you've already done references on as well, and you can easily fall back on that. I hope that's helped, and I hope that's answered the question.
Yes, I'm answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedric.
All right. I know Comfort had his hand up, so maybe Comfort, you can go ahead, and then we'll do closing remarks, Buhlali, and then we'll close.
Awesome. Thanks, Mti. Buhlali, thank you for this presentation. It's been really, really great and very helpful.
Pleasure.
You had already spoken about, in your previous answers, you spoke about medical aids and stuff, and I'd written a note there. So my next 2 questions are really just trying to short circuit my own homework. So I've been thinking about employee medical aid scheme benefits for quite some time, but I'm just trying to think, like, in your experience, which companies or medical aids are sort of the ideal for an SMME, if you want to set up these kinds of benefits to become, an attractive employer, number one. So I just want to know, maybe let's say your top 3 that you would recommend we really take a look into, so that we're not trying to compare, thousands and thousands of these medical aid schemes. Secondly, you mentioned the software Leaply. Is it leap.ly? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm seeing it's more like, if you're looking for opportunities, I'm trying to see where the employer side of the equation is. But which sort of, as far as HR and payroll management, right? So you mentioned that you've worked in big corporates, and I've always been curious to know what kind of software or systems do big corporates use for their HR management and payroll and leave and all those sort of things that are obviously compliant with labor laws, but also with now the POPI Act.
Lots of questions there, Comfort. How can I short circuit my answer? So maybe, I hope you've seen my email address. Maybe pop me an email, because
Wait,
there's
please show it up again.
Let me put it in the chat quickly.
Okay, perfect.
So there's people that I think would be great. So there's people I know that work for an organization called ASI, right? So it's they really all about just navigating the future of healthcare. And I've met them once when I worked at We Buy Cars, and have maintained the relationship since then. And really, they're the kind of organization that helps all organizations, irrespective of your size, come up with the best plans for your employees from a medical aid perspective.
Nice.
So depending on your size, your industry, the needs that you have, they would be able to really scope it out for you. So I know a guy, Tami, I'm wondering whether I can do it like an email. So the organization is called ASI. I'm trying to find their link. So they would be great to be able to help you, right?
Okay.
I think medical aids, there's a lot of different ones. There's a lot of smaller ones that are actually more beneficial for smaller organizations.
Yeah.
But because I've only really worked for massive organizations, I know the core ones, right?
Right. Yeah.
That are a lot more expensive for discovery and
Yeah.
all of those kinds of guys. But I also know that, at the time where I worked at We Buy Cars, we used Momentum. They have they've created different bands as well within that, that cater for people that just need hospital plans or people that just need, some of the more basic aspects that are not necessarily at a comprehensive level. But I would say ASI is probably the best organization for you to tap into. I can maybe do an introduction between you and Tami that I know.
Sure.
And you guys can take it offline there, and he can recommend what some of the smaller clients are using there.
Great. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Once again, I think even if I was to give you a sense of the platforms that are used, they're going to be the big platforms, right? Or Sage, Workday. There's so many platforms from an HR perspective, it really depends on what it is that you are looking for. But Sage is one of the biggest from a payroll perspective, but they deal with very big clients. I don't know if the costing of what they have to set up for you as a smaller organization, whether that's going to be beneficial for you in the long run. But let me think about it. Let me tap into my network, and I can come back to you once you've emailed me. I can come back to you with some suggestions around payroll or HR platforms for SMMEs. And then you can maybe take it from there.
That's great. I see your emails hasn't come through. I'm not sure if the chats are updating on my side.
So it's just info@bohlalipayile.com. Let me put it up again. Closed it on that side. info@bohlalipayile.com.
Okay, got it. Awesome.
Guys, thank you so much. I'm assuming that was the last question. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, I do hope that the rest of you have found this very valuable, insightful. If there are any further questions or ways in which I can connect you to my network, I live what I speak, guys, right? For Tami from ASI, I have not used them myself in my personal capacity, but I've probably had 2 coffees and I've been invited to an event at their organization. That's how I maintain relationships, right? And through maintaining relationships, I now am able to connect other people. And also equally on their end, when there's things that come up and they think, Bohlale is good at this, that's how I then start getting my clients as well. So everything I've spoken about today, guys, I live it. I've done it, I've experienced it. It's not just from a theoretical perspective. So I really hope that it was valuable to you. I hope that through this, some of the principles that you've learned, you'll start implementing in your own spaces and start being intentional about building your personal brand, guys, and your employer brand. It goes without saying that once you start doing that, it will make life that much easier as you continue to scale your organization. So hopefully, maybe one day in the future, there's an opportunity to speak just about personal branding or building an employer brand and some of those concepts there. But thank you once again for your time. I know we've gone over time, but hopefully in answering some of the questions, it's been valuable to everyone else as well. Tim Kulu, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. You're welcome. It was our absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, Bohlale. I've noted what you've just said about some of those other topics, which we will rope you into to handle for us in future sessions as well. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to everyone for making the for the session this morning. This session was recorded and will be uploaded on our digital platform if you'd like to refer back to anything or perhaps catch up on the session. Otherwise, wishing everyone an amazing day and a productive week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.